I would now like to invite our international guest for this afternoon, Dr. Chris McDowall from Digital New Zealand, and he's going to speak to us about opportunities for collaboration of digitising important collections for the commemoration.
Hello everybody, good morning. Thank you very much for having me today. It's a really great privilege to be here this morning. I'm from the National Library of New Zealand, and which sits within the Department of Internal Affairs. The particular part of the library that I'm within, I'm just going to push this back a bit, I've got quite a loud voice. The particular part of the library that I'm in is the digital wing, Digital New Zealand. And what I thought I would do today is provide you, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on the various things that are happening across the Tasman, but I wanted to give you quite a high-level view of some of the major initiatives that are going on in the hope that we can make connections between the two countries. So I'm going to focus particularly on the National Library, the New Zealand Archives, Te Papa, the Museum of New Zealand, and also on the overarching initiative that the Ministry for Culture and Heritage has launched, WW100. I thought it might be briefly useful just to put up the aims of the New Zealand Centenary program. And I've bolded one in particular, which I think is actually happening right at this moment, which is to strengthen New Zealand's bilateral relationship with Australia and all other participants in the First World War. But it's the two down the bottom which I think I'm going to be showing you things that, initiatives that relate to these. One of the aims is to deepen the understanding of the First World War by telling and preserving stories about New Zealanders' war experiences at home and abroad. And also to provide a living legacy of the war's impacts and the ongoing significance so that current and future generations are more informed. And from the talks that I've heard this morning, I think that certainly echoes what's happening in Victoria. So I'd like to note that within New Zealand there is actually no official digitisation project in New Zealand. There is a lot of digitisation happening of materials, and I'm going to be showing you a lot of those today. But there is no digitisation program that is specifically funded by the Centenary. Instead, digitisation programs are happening out of government department baselines. So a lot of government departments have made the digitisation of First World War materials a high priority. And all of the institutions that I'll be showing are doing that. There's also been application through a community grant pool of funding, especially from the Lottery Grants Board. I won't be showing you those things today, but I can point you to resources where you can learn more about them. So www100.gov.nz is the official commemoration website. This is been run out of the Ministry for Culture and Heritage, although it's connecting to all of the various government departments that have an interest, and also a lot of the arts groups and the military and defence organisations. And it's sort of a central hub for all of the activity that's going on. So if on the back of this you're interested in what's going on in New Zealand, this is the place where I'd recommend that you take a look. It's sort of a hub for all of the other digital activities that are going on. I think one of the most exciting and interesting projects that's happening is at the Auckland War Memorial Museum, involving their cenotaph database. So the cenotaph database at Auckland War Memorial it's been going for several years, and they're currently in the middle of an upgrade, and they're about to launch a new version of it. But what the cenotaph database does is it's a page for every soldier. It doesn't exclusively focus on the First World War. It actually covers all of New Zealand's major and minor military conflicts. But there's been a lot of emphasis on the First World War. So many of the other engagements are quite incomplete. Many of the other records of personnel are incomplete. First World War, there's been a very, very heavy emphasis upon it. This is the current version of the cenotaph. In a very short time actually, there'll be a new refreshed version of it. And so this is the announcement on the Auckland War Memorial website. one of the most interesting things about what the War Memorial Museum are doing is, and this is as technical as I'm going to get in this talk, but they're doing something which is called linked open data. And so what they're trying to do is not just present the information, but present the information both for people, for us to read this, but also so that it can be used by researchers in a way that there are explicit linkages between people and places and events at the level of structured data. So what the Cenotaph aims to do is, as I said before, it aims to include a page about every New Zealand service person who served in World War I. It's supposed to be, in the new refreshed version, it's intended to be a digital social space which will accept submissions from family members and from enthusiasts, so a central place where photographs and stories can be collected together. And where possible, they're trying to link beyond the Cenotaph website across to other community digital spaces as well. So again, it's that repeating that same theme, which I think we've heard echoed by many of the different speakers this morning, trying to make connections between the various places. Archives New Zealand is well into a personnel file digitisation project. So this is a major project which has been funded out of the baseline of Archives New Zealand, the official government archives. And what they're doing is digitising and making available all of the personnel records that are held by that agency. So they're trying to connect it in as well with the Cenotaph project, which I showed you earlier. So again, connecting from a government archival agency across to a city war memorial museum. And the mission is to complete all of the digitisation of its First World War materials, and so that it will coincide with the commemorations this year. The Alexander Turnbull Library is a really interesting institution. It's actually, within the National Library, it's often thought of, it's the library within the library. So the National Library holds all of the published materials of New Zealand. The Alexander Turnbull Library holds what's called the unpublished collections. So the unpublished collections are things like the photographs, manuscripts, ephemera, oral histories as audio recordings, video recordings, that sort of, those sorts of really important cultural materials that aren't released as published books and are instead a little bit more tricky to pin down. And the Turnbull has hundreds upon thousands of these items, many of which, a very large number of which relate to the First World War. They're involved in a digitisation project, which there's many different strands to this, but one of them that I'm going to speak about, or just highlight briefly, is actually the digitisation of diaries. And it's an incredibly rich set of materials. So they're photographing the individual books and also scanning all of the various pages, and these are being made available online for family members and researchers. So the books themselves are made available online, and then people can visit the Turnbull to examine the original copies in the secure reading rooms. Another strand of the commemorations is actually looking at the impact of the communities and the families who remained in New Zealand during the conflict. There's some really interesting things that are happening there in the digital space. Some of those involve the transcription of other sorts of diaries. So we've got diaries from soldiers who were involved in the conflicts, but also diaries from people who stayed at home, and the point of view of the communities and what was happening in New Zealand at the time throughout those years. One of the quite interesting things that's happening from within the Ministry for Culture and Heritage Project is that they're making use of social media in order to try and give people a sense of what was going on. So they're tweeting using Twitter to tweet out little diary extracts day by day, so that people can subscribe to a particular feed. Either they can pick a particular person, or everything's collected together in the Life 100 Years Ago account, and it gives day-by-day accounts of what happened to be happening at this time 100 years ago. So it's a snapshot for today. It'll be what was happening on March the 4th, 5th? Sorry, I've been moving around a fair bit, I've lost track. But in 1914. And it's quite an interesting way of sort of getting this ambient sense of what was going on. The final thing that I want to talk about is the work that I'm involved in, and what we're trying to do is link across all of these various different resources and make these things available to a community of folk who might build new digital experiences off them. So I work for Digital New Zealand. Digital New Zealand is a national aggregator. The closest international analogues within Australia, it would be Trove. Within Europe, it would be Europeana, or the Digital Public Library of America in North America. We harvest metadata relating to New Zealand digital content from 150 different partner organisations. We pull this information in, describing old historic newspapers and photographs and television shows and radio broadcasts, and we make it available through a single common API. Through a single common data service for people to build new experiences off. So what it is for programmers, it's a single place that they can go and get information, and in going to us, it pulls data from all of these other institutions in a standard way. So that doesn't look very exciting. That's the sorts of things that comes out the other end of the software that we run, our metadata harvesting software. But the sorts of things that people build off it, I think, are really interesting and exciting. So this is a search for Henry Sanders, who was a particular photographer in World War I and participated in the conflicts. And from this, it's pulling Henry Sanders's photography from many different institutions and presenting it all in a single place. It also drives the National Library's website. So from using this one data service, picking up all of these different First World War materials, people are building different things off it. This is an interactive touch table that again is also built off the same data service. So we look after just the data, we look after going out and collecting all of these materials, many of which relate to World War I, and then people can just go to one place and build things off it. The reason I raise this is because WW100 later this year will be launching a search service from within their website, which will be built off the Digital New Zealand technology. One of the really interesting things, and perhaps this is one of the important points to take away, and it's the final thing that I'll say, is that in doing this work, we've had to spend a lot of time working with institutions on questions of copyright. So the H series, which I showed you earlier, the H series relates to the Henry Sanders photographs, had 5 different copyright statements applied to it before we got involved. And they were there for very good reasons historically, but it made it very difficult for people to work with those materials and quite unclear how those various copyright statements played together. So one of the things that my colleagues do, I look after the technical side of things, and we have copyright specialists as well who look after the rights and usage, is that they were able to work with these different institutions to agree upon a single copyright statement, which made it much clearer for folk to build digital experiences off these materials, and in doing so reduce the barriers for getting this out to more places. So I think that the commemoration is a really useful opportunity to review copyright and usage, and trying to clarify and simplify these things so that people know just what they can do with the different materials. Is this something that is very private and should be kept so, or is this something that we're comfortable opening up? So thank you very much for your time. I'm going to be around over lunch and then I'm afraid I need to pop away, but I really appreciate it. And if you'd like to get in touch with me or other people about this, my email's here and I can make sure you get in touch with the right person in New Zealand. Thank you.